Hi internet! I don't really remember a lot about November. I fell into a pretty deep depression and things sort of spiraled out of control. Apparently, I read 19 books. I don't really remember doing this, but I do remember the books themselves, and I guess reading has always kept me going. Books always keep me going. First genre, children's literature. I read 4 books in this genre. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. This is a story about the economic system of capitalism. This eccentric candy maker Willy Wonka hides 5 golden tickets inside of chocolate bars. Those who discovered the 5 tickets will be invited to his factory for a tour. Several children discovered those tickets, many due to their class privilege and access to candy. But poor Charlie Bucket, whose family can only afford to buy 1 chocolate bar a year, simply gets lucky. This book makes it very clear that contests and policies that appear neutral aren't really neutral, because those in privileged positions will be able to use their privilege to their advantage. Then there is a tour of the factory. It is revealed that the candy is made by slave labor. 4 of the children have terrible accidents and injuries, partially because of their inability to follow instructions and partially because Willy Wonka does not know how to manage children because he has spent years locked up and only interacting with his slaves. This is one of those stories that gets more messed up the more you think about it. It is surprisingly complex and fun. I'm giving it 4 stars. Hatching Magic by Anne Downer Hazel. This book tells the story through multiple points of view, mainly Theodora Oglethorpe's, who feels lonely with her father on a business trip, and her friends all on vacation, and Gideon, a royal wizard whose pet wyvern has disappeared through a magic hole to another time. They're the main narrators as magic from the 13th century interacts with the 20th century Boston. There is some great elements of dramatic irony as readers discover things from different minor characters throughout the story and are able to piece together parts of the mystery early on. The story itself was honestly kind of boring and inconsistent in parts, but I think I would have really liked it if I had read it when I was a kid. I'm giving it 3 stars. I continued my Harry Potter reread. I read the 2nd book, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. This book features really important lessons like the importance of hiring qualified teachers. Being bilingual doesn't make you a bad person. And violence against women is often invisible and takes place under everyone's noses because people don't pay enough attention to the issue and don't listen to vulnerable people. 3rd book, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, also handles really serious topics like corruption in the justice system, oppression of minorities, unlawful detainment, depression and PTSD. Also time travel. I'm giving both books 5 stars. 2nd genre, young adult fiction. It's my favorite genre and I read 7 young adult fiction books. A Touch of Gold by Annie Sullivan. This is a fairy tale retelling and continuation. 10 years after King Midas gave up his golden touch, his daughter Princess Cora is still dealing with the consequences. Her skin is golden, rumors surround her very existence, and she has secret powers that are getting harder to hide. When a thief steals precious items from the kingdom, Cora is the only one who can track the thief down. She fights against pirates and curses in this daring adventure with quick touches of romance scattered throughout. It's a quick and entertaining read that pulls you in immediately. I'm giving it 4 stars. To Be Honest by Maggie Ann Martin. This is a story about body image and abuse. Savannah is dreading being home alone with her overbearing mother when her big sister leaves for college. Her mother's obsession with weight has only gotten worse since she appeared as a contestant on an extreme weight loss show. Savannah's mom has been helicopter parenting and pressuring her daughter to lose weight as well. This is a story about abuse and eating disorders in a lot of ways and what happens when your parents stop being able to parent you. It wasn't particularly well written in my opinion. The story is flat, there isn't a lot of character growth, and the romantic subplot was both unnecessary and forgettable. I'm giving it 3 stars. The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan. This is a story about grief, family, and art. Leah Chen Sanders knows that when her mother died by suicide, she turned into a bird. Leah, who is biracial, travels to Taiwan to meet her maternal grandparents for the first time in order to search for her mother, the bird. As she chases after her mother's ghost, she uncovers family secrets and develops a relationship with her grandparents. This has beautiful elements of magical realism. I think the best compliment I can give this book is that I read it in November, it's now April, and I still think about it constantly. I'm giving it 5 stars. Puddin' by Julie Murphy. This is the sequel to Dumplin' and is about Millie Michaelchuk and Callie Reyes. It's a story of female friendship and how to do it. You want to expect a friendship to develop between Millie, the endlessly positive and enthusiastic fat girl, and Callie, who is next in line to be the dance team captain and is moody and vengeful. It's fun and cute and shows how differences between friends can push people to be better. I'm giving it 3 stars. American Panda by Gloria Chow. It's about family and anxiety. May is 17, Taiwanese, and a freshman at MIT. Her parents have planned out her whole life for her. Become a doctor, marry a pre-approved Taiwanese Ivy Leaguer, and have kids. She knows that if she doesn't follow her parents' plan, she will be disowned, just like her older brother was. The problem is she is afraid of germs, hates her biology class, has a crush on a Japanese boy, and has been reaching out to her estranged older brother. Basically, there is no hope of her successfully living up to her parents' expectations, or survive the inter-Asian politics of being a second-generation American. It does rely on some Asian stereotypes to tell the story, but it also works to add complexity on top of those stereotypes. I'm giving it 4 stars. Wayward Son by Rainbow Rowell. This is the sequel to Carry On. Simon Snow was the chosen one, he was a magician, and he's done everything he is supposed to and won the war. And now he's depressed and can't seem to get off the couch. So his boyfriend Baz and their best friend / roommate Penny decide it is best if they travel to America, rent a vintage convertible, and take a road trip across the continent to break Simon out of his funk. They do not understand how big America is. They visit old friends, fight vampires and dragons, and save the world again. It's gay, it's fun, it's one of the only books I've read that tries to answer the question of what happens to the chosen one when they're no longer chosen. Plus, this is the book that made me realize the whole series has titles inspired by classic rock. I'm giving it 4 stars. With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. I talked about Elizabeth Acevedo's debut novel in the last reading wrap-up, and I honestly wasn't sure to expect with this book since it is all written in prose. This story is about Amani Santiago, a talented chef and high school senior. She wants to work in a real kitchen someday. She wants to take her school's new culinary arts class and go on the class trip to Spain. But it's hard for her to follow her ambition because she has a daughter to take care of. And even with her grandmother's help, she has to put her daughter first. This is a smart book. It shows how cooking can be emotional and magical. It's deeply rooted in Afro-Latinx experience, and it's a story of parental failings and parental love. It is passionate and beautiful writing. I'm giving it 5 stars. Third genre, comics. I read 2 comics in November. Nimona by Noelle Stevenson. This was a reread for me. I originally read this back when it was a webcomic. It's this beautifully drawn and comedic graphic novel that has a really nice blend of fantasy and science fiction. It's the story of an impulsive young shapeshifter who starts working for the villain Lord Ballister Blackheart. Their mission is to prove that his old friend and current nemesis with a lot of sexual tension in their relationship, Sir Ambrosius Goldenloin, along with the institution of law enforcement and heroics, aren't quite as heroic as they are making themselves out to appear. Several tropes are inverted and the lines of morality are blurred as we investigate who is the real threat in such a complicated world. I'm giving it 5 stars. Moonstruck, Volume 1, Magic to Brew by Grace Ellis, Shay Beagle, and Kate Leth. This story has truly adorable artwork and a great sense of world building. Werewolf barista Julie goes on a date with her new girlfriend, and for some reason her centaur friend Chet tags along. They go to a close-up magic show and the magician has been secretly stealing magic. The pals team up with other magical creatures to find the magician and force him to give Chet their magical horse half back. It's a very gay story, which I liked. The characters are adorable and likable, the art incredible, and the storytelling, honestly, a bit patchy. I wish it had a stronger and more connected narrative, but I had fun reading it. I'm giving it 3 stars. Fourth genre, classic books. I only read 1, Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. This is not my favorite Jane Austen books. Perhaps because the protagonist Fanny Price is just so passive. Fanny is the oldest daughter of a poor family. She gets sent off to her maternal aunt's family because her mother's sister married into wealth and can afford to take her in. Fanny is shy and introverted. She grows up isolated and ostracized by the family that she lives with. She tags along with her cousins and their friends when they let her, and her cousins and their friends are usually up to no good. Even though she knows better, she never really does anything to stop them or speak up for herself, which I found annoying. It was still completely hilarious and insightful like all Jane Austen novels, but this one really wasn't for me. It was undeniably excellent though, so I'm giving it 4 stars. Our 5th and final genre in November is nonfiction. I read 5 nonfiction books. Dear Asia Welle, or A Feminist Manifesto in 15 Suggestions by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This is a follow-up to her book We Should All Be Feminists and an open response to her friend who asked her how to raise their daughter as a feminist. This is filled with advice or suggestions on how to empower young girls to become strong and independent in today's world. This works to acknowledge some of the complexities within our society that were left out of her previous book. I thought it was good advice and I'm giving it 4 stars. My Beloved World by Sonia Sotomayor. This is a memoir from the first Latinx and 3rd woman appointed to this U.S. Supreme Court. This is also kind of a continuation of my reading from October when I read biographies about Sandra Day O'Connor and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I could not find a book on Olenna Kagan. It's disappointing. Justice Sotomayor came from humble beginnings and she is really honest about her childhood. She grew up in a housing project in the Bronx with a loving but alcoholic father and an overworked mother. When Sonia was a little girl, she was diagnosed with diabetes and she learned it was best to depend on herself. That's her story. She decided to become a lawyer based on what she knew about lawyers from watching TV. Same. Although lots of people reading this book are probably interested in her career, Justice Sotomayor shares details from her personal life, her family, friendships, and her failed marriage, with an attitude of intimacy and trust in the reader, which I really loved. I loved reading it, and I'm giving it 4 stars. Fascism, A Warning by Madeleine Albright. Madeleine Albright was the first woman to be the U.S. Secretary of State. She draws on her childhood experiences in war-torn Europe and as a diplomat to challenge the idea that the world would reject fascism in the modern era. She defines a fascist as someone who claims to speak for a whole nation or group, is utterly unconcerned with the rights of others, and is willing to use violence and whatever other means necessary to achieve the goals they might have. She talks about fascist leaders from the past like Hitler and Mussolini, and current world leaders like Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un, to break down what tactics fascists historically have used so we can save ourselves from repeating history. It was informative. I'm giving it 5 stars. The Audacity of Hope, Thoughts on Reclaiming the American Dream by Barack Obama. This book was published in 2006, before he was the president, and he lays out his vision for America, talks about his family, life, and work as a senator, and is refreshingly optimistic. I read this book and basically went, oh yeah, I see why all those grown-ups elected him to be president. I'm giving it 4 stars. Evicted, Poverty and Profit in the American City by Matthew Desmond. A sociologist follows 8 families in Milwaukee as they struggle with housing and pushes the reader's understanding of poverty and economic exploitation while offering possible solutions to the affordable housing crisis. It's often uncomfortable. I decided to read this book because I was working for Julian Castro, the former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, and one of the only presidential candidates to release a comprehensive housing plan at the time. I had a team pushing me to be better. I wanted to understand the issue beyond my own experiences, and this book helped. It was accessible and always took the option of humanizing and empathizing with those experiencing housing insecurity. I'm giving it 4 stars. Those are all of the 19 books I read in November. I learned a lot. Most importantly, despite my depression, I got through the month. Probably because I read so much. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments how your day is going, and if you want to see more from me, please subscribe, watch another video of mine, or support me on Patreon. And hey, I love you.